Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, February the 23rd. And today we're going to be chatting with our friend Jorge Martinez of the LIBRE Initiative organization. We've had conversations with folks from that organization before, Tina Aviles a few weeks ago. And, of course, we've always had a lot of contact with Israel Ortega, who's out of the Washington, D.C. area. So today we're going to talk about some of the latest things that the group is doing, as well as look at the situation in South Texas and see how that is working out. So let me say hello to our friend Jorge Martinez. Jorge, it's a great honor to have you. Welcome.
Silvio, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
You know, I have to begin by when we were talking off the phone today or offline today, you mentioned that you were born or you are from Mission, Texas. And of course, not that I'm an expert in that town, but Tom Landry was born there. And that, Tom Landry is one of my favorites. So I bet there's a lot of Tom Landry in Mission, Texas, I bet.
Yeah, I wasn't born here, but I came to Texas and Mission specifically as soon as I could. And we have the Tom Landry Stadium at the Mission High School football team here, the Eagles, and then you have a big mural of him, and there's also a street named after him. So he's very well known, very popular in this area, being from Mission. Absolutely,
and a lot of people may not remember this or know this, but he was a B-24 bomber pilot in World War II. So he flew a lot of missions in World War II as a bomber pilot, and those were very dangerous missions that he took. So he served his country quite well before he became the legend with the Dallas Cowboys. So I've always been a huge fan of Tom Landry. So I've been to Mission, Texas, and I've seen that mural that you're talking about, and it's great. It's just a great honor for a great man, Jorge.
Yeah, it sure is. We're happy that obviously he was successful in his career and he served our country, and as you said, and hopefully others can come down to Mission and see the mural, and obviously if they come down here, see other things what's going down here locally as far as a policy goes.
That's right, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Jorge.
Well, thanks. So originally, actually, I'm born in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico, but I was raised in the Central Valley of California. My parents were farm workers. They worked in almonds and raisins, and my brother, sisters, and I all got the opportunity to work in the field as well to see what hard work that was. My parents never once depended on any government assistance. My dad made minimum wage for the longest time with a third grade education. But he was able to end up supervising and overseeing over 1,000 acres of almonds and raisins, and he was employed for 43 or so years in the same location. And my mom started in the fields as well, and she worked her way up to cleaning houses, and then she ended up having her own list of clients, and she was able to get out of the fields and start making more than enough money where she can do that comfortably, and so myself, I earned a communications degree out of Fresno in 2011 at Fresno State, and then I earned my master's in public administration in Riverside. And as far as LIBRE goes, I joined the LIBRE Initiative in 2012, and I've served in various roles, and I currently serve as coalitions director for LIBRE. And during this time living in Texas, I was also appointed by Governor Abbott to the Texas Physician Assistant Board as a public member of the board, and I served a full term. That term expired last year in February of last year. But that's a little bit about me, and now, I'm married a little over 10 years. I got a 5-year-old and a soon-to-be 3-year-old here at home who are handsome kids, but, they definitely drain the energy sometimes.
Well, I understand that. That part about it, I understand. We're a little bit older. We have 3 sons now who are like in your generation, and we got a couple of grandsons. So we're pretty busy ourselves with that. But let me ask you a question about your parents, because I always enjoy hearing the family story. Did your parents come to the United States under the Blasero program? Is that how they came?
No, they actually came before then. It wasn't the late 60s, it was the early 70s. My dad actually would come as a child, so it was in the mid-50s, late 50s, but it wasn't until my dad was, I think, 18, 19 when he was on his own before he met my mom. So it was way before then. They came here legally. They had already lived in California, and I was born during the holiday season when they were on vacation. And lo and behold, you can't stop God's timing. But I got to live, I think, 5 or 10 days in the Reagan administration before he was. We had another president come in. But yeah, they came in before the Blasero program.
Yeah. 2 of my sons were born. Let's see. I was trying to calculate. 2 of my sons were born under President Reagan, and the other one under President Bush. So we had good timing with that. We had good timing with choosing our president. We were happy about that. But let's talk a little bit about LIBRE and an activity that you've been involved with here recently, and it's the Dignidad or Dignity program. You mentioned that this was introduced by Maria Elvira Salazar, who is a Republican congresswoman from the Miami area. She was also, people probably remember her as a news reader or news reporter in Spanish television down in South Florida. But tell me about that program and why it interests you and it interests LIBRE.
Yeah, so the Dignity Act, as you mentioned, it was introduced by Republican Representative Maria Elvira Salazar out of Florida, as you mentioned. There's a lot of great things about this bill, but before I get into that, it's important to note that there are multiple Republican co-sponsors of this bill in the House. And now you are seeing multiple pieces of legislation when it comes to immigration, when it comes to border security, coming from the Republicans. And it's important to note that Republicans are now coming to the table with solutions to big problems that we have when it comes to immigration. And it's now, Democrats' turn to come to the table, if they are serious about immigration, to start negotiating. And so what this bill does, it's a comprehensive bill. It brings in a little bit of the Border Solutions Act, and it brings in a little bit of the Farm Workforce Act into it as well. But I think the area here that we'll talk about is it modernizes our security, our technology at the border. So that means getting new sensors. That means new camera equipment. That's new drones. This is going to fully secure the border when it comes to technology. And that's a great thing. It's also going to add thousands of more Border Patrol agents. It's going to require and allow the funding to bring on more agents. I live here on the border, and my family and the people I talk to, the people I go to church with, they all want a safe community. And thankfully, we don't see crime or we don't see exactly what's happening right on the border, because Border Patrol does do a decent job, and we obviously want to see that secured. The other side of this, though, is it actually does something to reform some of our immigration system. So what is that? If you are a DACA or a dreamer that came here before 2016, you can qualify for the Dignity Visa. Obviously named after the visa or the act, the Dignity Act. You have to qualify, though, for this visa in certain ways. One of that is you have had to either be educated for 4 years, so received a degree, or have worked consistently for 4 years, or have served in our military for at least 3 years to qualify for this visa. And of course, pass background check, fingerprints, criminal record history, all that stuff. And if you, and that's good for 10 years. Now, for undocumented immigrants that came here before 2016, this also offers something for them. The prerequisites for them are a little bit more expensive because they came in knowingly have broken the law, but we want there's going to be redemption here. So what are the requirements for them? The big one is there's going to be a $10,000 fine as the bill is written today over a 10-year period. So that means $1,000 every year for 10 years. On top of that, they need to pass a background check, their criminal history, they need to do the fingerprints, all of that. They need to have a consistent work. You can't be dependent on government assistance. And so that's the other part. And it's for 10 years as well. So if things are good, if the person meets all the requirements, they get the visa over 10 years, you can now, after those 10 years, either reapply if you're the undocumented category, reapply for that dignity visa, or you can now file for redemption is what the bill states. So you can now either apply for the dignity visa or the green card, permanent residency, also is what it's known, for another 10 years. So that's what the bill does on both sides. There's enough for Democrats to take a win. There's enough for Republicans to take a win. And the LIBRE initiative for the longest time has been saying we can do both. We can have border security and have immigration reform at the same time. This is going to alleviate the issues we're having with those coming illegally here across the border, and also modernize our immigration system. It's a win-win, not just for the parties or the people that it impacts in the bill, but it's a win for our country because of the services that we benefit from.
Right. So the Dignity Act, if I understand it correctly, is somewhat similar, not exactly the same, but I mean it's some similarity to what we used to call the McCain-Bush immigration reform that we debated about 15 years ago, that created a path to legalization for some of the people who are here. So in that respect, it's similar. But what I hear different is that there is no path to citizenship. It is simply basically a work visa that allows you to work in the United States. We're talking about undocumented people here. We're not talking about the dreamers. The dreamers I know are different. But so I've always felt that is a very sensible way to go. You tell someone, okay, look, we're going to put you on a path to legality so you can work legally in the United States, so that you can contribute, so you can pay taxes, so you can be a part of the community, but there's no path to citizenship. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, the way this bill is written, it gives redemption. So you can contribute to our society, you can continue working with this visa, and or after the 10 years, if you qualify, you do nothing wrong, and you're doing the things the right way that this bill allows you to do, you can apply for permanent residency. So no, this bill does not offer citizenship. However, current law today that's been in existence for over 30 years, for longer than I've been alive, allows you to get permanent, if you have your permanent residency, your green card, to apply for citizenship. And that's how I became a citizen. Obviously, I said I was born in Mexico. I had my green card until about 15. I started going through the process. By the time I was 18, I was able to become a citizen in 2008. So current law today allows for that. But this bill specifically does not create the citizenship. It just creates the legal pathway.
Yeah, because a couple of the areas that have been troubling, okay, not to me necessarily, but to get something done. Obviously, border security, for some crazy reason, Democrats or some Democrats do not want to support that in conjunction with some kind of immigration reform. And then there are some Republicans who oppose a path to citizenship. So what I like about the Dignity Act is that you are fixing the border and creating border security and establishing the integrity of the border, but at the same time, you're creating at least a path to legalization for people who are contributing to our society. I mean, these are people who are working, and because they're not here legally, they're probably being discriminated against in their jobs or the money they make or perhaps even the way they're being treated, George.
That's exactly right. The other good thing to note here is you mentioned it. This is for those who are contributing to society. So for those that have the concern, it's that, one, if you don't pass that background check, if you are dependent on government assistance, if you don't have a consistent job, if you're not here as a contributing member of society, if you are a risk to society, you're not going to qualify. You have to qualify. So you're going to pay your back taxes. You're going to pay your fees, and it's a hefty fee. And if someone were to go through this entire process of the undocumented population that came here before 2016, if they were to start today, if this bill passed today and it was law, the soonest anyone can actually vote, if they were a citizen, would be in 25 years. So that means the year 2047. That's the way the law is written today, or the bill. So if Democrats are serious now, they can come negotiate. They can change this up, maybe reduce it, who knows, but that's the way it is today. And I think, like I said, if Democrats are serious, Republicans have a solution to this big problem. And we want to applaud Representative Maria Elvira Salazar for taking that courage and that leadership to come forward with some solution.
Right. No, I agree with you that this has always been the problem, that the Democrats are very good at talking, but they're not very good at passing anything. Even when they've had, President Obama had majorities in the House and he had 60 votes in the Senate, and they were not able to do anything on the topic of immigration except give speeches. Now, I assume that this piece of legislation has been introduced in the House, but has not been put to a vote, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that is correct. It's been introduced. Still has to go through committee. We need, or the representative would need more sponsors, more support. It'd be great if there was a bipartisan support, but it's not there yet. But the LIBRE initiative, to be clear, we want to applaud her and her efforts, and just inform the community of what's going on, and specifically note that we believe this is a good path and a good step in the right direction.
No, I agree. I like it. I like it. I think it is the right step in the right direction here because it's a very sensible approach. And it gives both sides something to take home, if you know what I mean. It gives
exactly.
the border security, and for other people, it does not have a path to citizenship, which has always been a stumbling block. So we can safely assume that if the Republicans take the majority in November, as many people expect, that this could be conceivably put to a vote next year. I think right now, my sense is that the Democrats are playing politics with this, and they don't want to really put it up for a vote as they have before. But I think if the Republicans were to take over, I think there would be a pretty good chance of this initiative actually at least getting a vote in the U.S. House, George.
I would hope so. If that were to happen, if Republicans gain the control, then you would hope that they would take action if they are also serious. I mean, we are seeing that Republicans, at least like Maria Elvira Salazar, they're serious, and those who have sponsored the bill. At the end of the day, we'll find out.
Right. What have you heard from, let's say, Senator Cornyn or Senator Ted Cruz about? I mean, have they reacted to this idea?
Well, I will tell you that this bill also includes Senator Cornyn's piece of legislation called the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act. He's the main author with Senator Sinema out of Arizona, and she's a Democrat. And then we have that bill that has the same in the House. It's the same bill. You have Congressman Tony Gonzalez, a Republican out of Texas, and Congressman Henry Cuellar, Democrat out of Texas, working together. And that piece of legislation, it focuses on asylum seekers. So going back to the Dignity Act, Representative Maria Elvira Salazar put that legislation in this one, in her bill. And basically what that bill does is improves the asylum seeker process. It creates 4 regional processing centers. It adds more immigration judges, more ICE and Border Patrol agents, and caseworkers to process asylum seekers. The big part of this is you're basically going to know if you're seeking asylum. We will know if your case is legitimate, if you are actually here for asylum purposes, and or if you're not. So if you come in seeking asylum and you don't have a legitimate case, you will be deported immediately. You don't have to wait. Like right now in the system, those who are coming seeking asylum, you're waiting up to 3 years before you see an immigration judge. So that's another great portion of this. So we know where Senator Cornyn lies on that. And I know that in previous conversations with Senator Cornyn, he's also in favor of a DACA Dreamer solution as well. But I have not talked to him about the Dignity Act specifically, and neither with Representative or with Senator Cruz.
Well, the Dignity Act is somewhat similar to, or not similar, but I mean there are some common ground. There is some common ground with what Senator Cornyn was proposing. I think one of the things that was a real disappointment for me was when President Trump was willing to actually, propose the legalization of about 2 million Dreamers, but the Democrats wouldn't work with him on the border. And I thought that was such a disappointment because we could have gotten the Dreamers done a couple of years ago by simply working together and having, giving President Trump the money up for the border, and President Trump was willing to do the Dreamers. And I thought that was really a disappointing move by the Democrats, George.
Yeah, I remind folks about that one a lot. He actually did this twice, and I have a great video I did last June or July when President Trump came back to the Rio Grande Valley, and I interviewed Trump supporters and asking them what they thought about Dreamers and DACA recipients. And the ones that I interviewed were all in favor of it. And I would remind folks, President Trump actually offered citizenship to all Dreamers. You're talking 2.1 million Dreamers in exchange for a border wall. And Democrats didn't take him seriously. They didn't want to take action. And then again, shortly after that, he offered citizenship to DACA recipients. So now you're talking 600, 800,000 folks. They are a subset group of Dreamers. But he offered citizenship to them without a wall, without anything, and they still didn't take him seriously. So now you have, there was two opportunities there. You have Senator Cornyn with the Bipartisan Solutions Act, and now you have the Representative Maria Elvira Salazar with the Dignity Act. Republicans are serious about actually finding a solution here. So, Democrats need to come to the table.
That's right. No, you're exactly right. Let me take a little break, George, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up. And I want to ask you a few questions about what's going on in South Texas. We'll be right back with our friend Jorge Martinez. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, chatting with our friend Jorge Martinez of the LIBRE initiative. George, I'm going to say something. It's a bit political, so you don't have to agree or disagree with me. But I think what's happening on the border right now, that chaos that we're seeing on the border, has actually done more harm politically to any opportunity of doing a Dignity Act or even the Dreamers or anything like that. I think what the chaos and the insanity of what we're watching in the border has actually pushed back any kind of immigration solution. Again, that's just a political comment, but I really feel strongly about that, George.
Yeah, it's no secret that things that keep happening down here, it gets media attention, national attention, and we're going to keep having the same issues if we don't come up with a solution, because we have a big problem here. So at the next crisis, we're going to be back where we are at if we don't do anything about it.
Right. What is happening in South Texas? We hear a lot about, what is happening down there politically. I mean, just in general, what do you see in South Texas? We hear a lot of good things. Obviously, we hear about these problems on the border. So what's going on down there? Tell us what's going on down there in South Texas as you see it.
Yeah, so actually to take it back 10 years ago, 2011, the LIBRE initiative was launched and founded by our president, Daniel Garza, who lives here in Mission as well. And the LIBRE initiative was honestly the only organization doing outreach about principles of economic freedom and free society and depending on your talents and your gifts and not depending on government and that message. And we were starting ESL classes, financial literacy classes, and really engaging in the community for a few years. And no one was batting an eye down here. No one, you saw what the votes were like in 2012 and 14 and 16. But I moved here in 2014 to really launch our field efforts, and I could see that there was something brewing here, because if anyone has learned anything out of this across the country, is that Hispanics are not monolithic. They don't all think the same. My views are definitely going to be different than another Hispanic, but I know I'm not the only one that thinks the way I think. And obviously now what we have seen is a lot of attention from outside groups, from the media because of the last election cycle. But what it shows you is that it wasn't so much because of the characteristic of a person is why they voted Republican. It's more about the policies, because it's the policies that impact our lives. And now you are seeing Hispanics here when I'm talking to people on the ground, because as a grassroots organization, we hit the doors, we knock on the doors, we make phone calls, and we're having events. And people are telling me, and they're telling our members, my colleagues, that it's the bottom dollar, it's the bottom line, it's the economy that matters, it's jobs. And you have right now policies that are impacting the energy field. We are paying a lot more at the gas pump, and that's all over the country. And food prices, that's the other one. The price for eggs has doubled here. I was just talking to Ronaldo, and his mom is taking ESL classes with us. This was last week, and he was telling me in front of a New York Times reporter as well that he buys 5 dozen eggs every 2 weeks for his family, and he works at H-E-B. He said it used to cost him $5. It's now costing him just under $10 for the same 5 dozen eggs. So now you're starting to see people really upset because they are starting to see the difference of how policy impacts your lives.
Right. No question about it. The cost of living, the price of gasoline, the price of food, and what I think are irresponsible attacks on the energy industry clearly are they're sounding, they're making a lot of Hispanics in South Texas, I think, reconsider maybe where they should be voting. Well, George, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and I want you to keep us informed, and if you have some people down there that you think would be a good interview for us, some people down in South Texas, feel free to refer them to me. I'm always interested in what's happening in the Hispanic community, and I think LIBRE has a great, you guys really have your hands or your fingers on the pulse in South Texas. So keep us informed. And most of all, I want to thank you for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to say that we didn't cover? We got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, well, I think if you haven't heard of us, or if you're not following us, check us out on Facebook, the LIBRE Initiative, and on Twitter, LinkedIn. We're on all the social media platforms, YouTube. You can also look us up at the LIBRE Initiative Texas to get Texas-specific information. And I just want to thank you as well, Silvio. It's been a complete honor to be a guest on your show. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, my pleasure. And I just wanted to say one quick thing here. I want to say hello to my friend Israel Ortega, who was the one who connected us. And I've known Israel for some time. And what got me interested in LIBRE was school choice, because that's a real interest of mine. I've been a very strong believer in school choice because I think it's the one community that would be most benefited by school choice would be the Hispanic community. So you guys do a great job in information and in advising people and working with people on school choice. So that's, for me, that was always the area of interest and what got me interested in the LIBRE initiative. So great to have you. Stay warm, or I shouldn't say that. We're very cold up here, so maybe that's why I'm saying stay warm. We're in the middle of a bit of a winter advisory up here, so maybe it's not cold down there, but stay well, take good care of yourself, and I look forward to chatting with you again.
Likewise, Silvio. You have a good one.
Thank you so much. Our friend Jorge Martinez of the LIBRE initiative. It's a great organization. You need to follow it. Just absolutely great people involved in that organization. As I mentioned at the end there, what got me interested in LIBRE a couple of years ago was school choice. But I know they do a lot of other things, and I really like this idea of the Dignity Act. I think it sounds like a very practical solution to a very difficult problem. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later.